an independent school that we started from scratch. And at a similar time, Mercy in Action, they were about 5 years older than us, they'd set up a charity. And because it was based on trying to get children into education, it seemed like a good charity for us to get involved with. The base was in Bath, in a developing country, in the Philippines. It just seemed like a good charity for us to get involved with. It's quite small in those days. Our school raised about between £3,000 and £4,000 each year. We have a Lent project where we all raise lots of money and we send that money out. And I'd often thought about going out to the Philippines, but it's never the right time. And then Nigel and I went out 3 years ago just to see what was happening out there. We've been twice since. And then I was doing a little bit of voluntary writing for them. And then when I gave up teaching to come here with Nigel, the charity offered me some work, so I now do some administration for them and I do some of the finance for them. So that's how we got involved. How the charity started. So imagine a couple in their 40s, they've got a 16-year-old daughter, they've got 5 children, she leaves school at 16 with a bare minimum of certificates and wants to change the world. That's all she wants to do at 16. I know what we'll do. Their church was involved in supporting a children's home in one of the islands, one of the southern islands in the Philippines. We'll send her out there for a year. That'll kill or cure her, okay? She'll go and change the world. And she stayed there 5 years. She met her husband, who was a Filipino, also working in the children's home. And then after 5 years, they decided to move as a couple with some children they'd adopted while they were there to Cebu. Cebu is one of the islands, that one there, so in the middle, in the Visayas, in the central part of the Philippines. So they moved from the south, from Mindanao, up to Cebu. And approached the local government, or whatever it is, in a city called Talisay, so Cebu is the main city on the island of Cebu. Talisay is a suburb, if you like. 250,000 population in this city called Talisay. And they approached the government and said, you know, we'd like to do some help. We'd like to work with children in poverty, families struggling. And they said, go up into the mountains, a really, really poor district, where in fact all the rubbish from the city of Cebu is sorted. Go and see if you can help them. And over a few years they did help. They helped to build a better school, they helped families up there, and then the government said, okay, you can now move into the city of Talisay, into the marketplace, and worked with street children. So there are lots of aspects to the charity now. It's developed as things do and evolved over 20 years. I'm just going to show you some of the aspects. So that's obviously, if you can work out where that is. Okay, and that's the side of the Philippines that we like to see. That's the one we see in our holiday brochures. Okay, we have visited that place in the top left-hand corner, the falls, and we do eat in restaurants like that sometimes. Okay, so that's what people want you to see, and it is a beautiful, beautiful country. That is not following a disaster, that is not following a hurricane or a typhoon, that is daily life for millions of people. Okay, Talisay City has a population of 250,000 and 80% of those live like that. Okay, and if you look in the background, that's actually the city of Cebu just behind them. Okay, and you could go to a nice restaurant or a nice hotel, and just the other side of the fence is that. And so we spent a lot of time working with communities there. One of the main aspects of the charity is to get children into school. The only way you are going to change their lives is to give them an education. So the main, and this is how it all started, the main idea is to get children into school. So families living in homes like that have no electricity, no running water. School is free, but you have to have a uniform. You have to have some school books and crayons and pencils. You have to have a pair of black shoes, otherwise you're the only one who doesn't. So Children are sponsored, so they approach the charity. Generally, they're involved in the charity in some way. The charity looks at them, looks at their circumstances, and can send children to school. They provide a school uniform. Photos, actually. Okay, so that is that district up in the mountains where all the rubbish in Cebu is sorted. Many of the families the charity works with, that is their job, sorting rubbish. And that's the teacher, the classroom, one of the classrooms up in the mountains. So those children are all sponsored by Mercy in Action. There's a group of teachers in the background who went out from the UK, so there's a school there. There's a lot of Filipinos living in the UK, just like there are a lot of Filipinos in this country. And many of them go to Catholic schools. This is a Catholic school near Bristol who raised a lot of money. Teachers paid for themselves to go out, but took some money out with them. They're doing some work. They did some teacher training as well with the teachers. So, children are sponsored. They get their school equipment. They get a backpack with their books and pencils for the year. They get a pair of black shoes that are actually used school shoes from the UK that we collect, because school shoes, good leather school shoes in the UK, even if they've been worn for 6 months, are still better quality than buying new plastic ones in the Philippines. So they go out, so they're getting their shoes fitted. They get 2 school uniforms. All the parents, or all the families, have to buy into this, this sponsorship. So the mums, generally it's the mums, sometimes it's the dads, have to volunteer to help cook meals. So probably once or twice a month. They go to the school, or they cook the food somewhere and take it to the school. Every child on the Mercy in Action schooling programme gets a cooked meal every day they are at school. But it also helps keep a track on whether the children are going every day. Why isn't Fred in today? Well, you know, what's wrong with him? Oh, he's back tomorrow, that's okay. So it keeps a track of them. We provide medical care. Medical care is not free. It's not free here either, is it either? We're used to it being free, obviously. It's not free, and Mercy in Action will pay for any medical fees that children need. And the children have, there are 6 social workers working with Mercy in Action. The social workers have regular interviews with the children, so that's just that one. Just checking everything's okay, keeping an eye on things. And then we do a medical check quarterly. So 4 times a year the children are weighed and their height, their eyes are just tested in a very simple test, and we would obviously send them to an optician if there was a problem. Just to keep a check on, is the feeding programme working, is this 1 meal a day, you know, helping. So that's what that is. And this year, there are about 420 children on the schooling programme. This year, 9 graduates left university. These 2, one's got a mechanical engineering degree, one's got a civil engineering degree. We have met teachers, social workers, engineers, who not just their lives have been transformed, but their whole family's lives have been transformed, and that goes then into the community. So it does work. You know, once the charity's been going a few years and you meet a few graduates, you know, those children lived in those sorts of dwellings, and still do, some of them. Some of them have been able to obviously better their lives. So that we sponsor them, obviously if they're up to going to university, right through university and beyond. So the reality is many, many children live like that. So they're not all in families. You know, these families have no electricity and water, but they're often very loving families, you know, and their parents are doing their best. But there are many children who do not have a supportive family. There's a drug problem, there's an alcohol problem, there's abuse going on, just like there would be anywhere in the world. And these children are sleeping like this. So these are children that come to what we have a drop-in centre. So the children are able to go, they're picked up actually, we know where the children are sleeping. And we've been out with the little sort of minibus, little minibus in the morning, because we know where they're sleeping overnight. They don't actually go to sleep till about 3 or 4 in the morning though, because they're too scared. There's horrible things going on, they're just too scared to go to sleep, so they end up just crashing out on a sidewalk somewhere, on a mattress if they're lucky. So we go around, sometimes we go out into the community and work with them. So that's that one. So we know where they are, we collect them, we take them to a piece of ground. They do some songs and dancing, they do lots of Zumba, which seems to be a popular thing, and take some food with us. So that is bags of rice, probably have dried fish in it, or chicken, sometimes scrambled egg, give them some food and some water. Just spend some time with them. But most days they go to the drop-in centre, but they're collected, a safe place for them for the day. They go to the drop-in centre and they are given access to water. There's a hose pipe in the garden that they wash. They're given clean clothes. The older ones will then wash their older clothes and hang them up so that there's clean clothes for another day. They're given breakfast. They have their own toothbrush. They're given breakfast and then they sleep. They've not been sleeping overnight, they sleep, so they just crash out. And then about lunchtime, but there's obviously also access to basic medical facilities, so there's a nurse there, basic facilities. About lunchtime, they're woken up, they're given their lunch, and then in the afternoon they do activities. So, they've not been to school. We're teaching them their basic alphabet, basic reading, see a bit of telly. Nigel's doing some physical exercise with them there, and they're colouring. And the boy in the striped t-shirt is 18, just before his 18th birthday, because when they're 18 they stop going, just before his 18th birthday, so he's 17. He spent an hour and a half colouring in a picture, which he then presented to me. He's had no access to education at all, just because he's been living on the streets. So colouring in is just something they love doing. Some of the children, and obviously this is all done with the government and social workers, some children will never be able to be integrated back into their families for whatever reason. We have 3 children's homes. This is one of the children's homes. It's currently the girls' home, it was the boys' home then, but the visitor accommodation is on the top floor, so when we go over, that's where we stay. Each home, so it was a girls' home, a younger boys' home, and an older boys' home. Many of the boys have been extracted from trafficking, drugs, sex trafficking, lots of trafficking going on. So the government will have approached the charity and said, we really need you to take this family of 4 boys, they're all, so children's homes are home from home. They have house parents, and they do things that kids want to do, things that they've not had access to. They go out for day trips. You look at these wholesome children and think they were living on the streets, they were the ones living on the sidewalk. And obviously living in a home completely transforms their lives. If they arrive at the home when they are 5 or 6 or 7, then they can go into schooling. If they arrive when they're 14, and I think it's a little bit like the American system, you can't go into grade 2 until you've passed grade 1. So I think it's a similar sort of system. You can't expect a 14, 15-year-old to go into grade 1. So we have set up a home school where they do a particular curriculum, and I think it is an American-based curriculum, isn't it? Because we were doing some of the teaching and support. They're so it's a personal learning scheme, and they get through about 2 grades a year, as long as there aren't any other issues, and often there will be issues from children who've been abused from a very young age. But there are some children who join at 12 and by 15 they're able to go into mainstream school because they've managed to catch up. Some children will never catch up. So there is a home school, that's the home school. You look at that group of children, they're all being homeschooled, but they were living on the sidewalk. They're proud of their uniform, they're proud to be there. They're always telling you what grade they've got to. I'm grade 5, says a 17-year-old. I've got through my grade 5. You're just, wow. Some children are fostered, so there's a little bit more fostering going on. And that's something that the Philippines is trying to encourage more, or at least the social workers are trying to encourage more. So the city of Talisay has 250,000 people. there are only 2 government social workers there, and 80% of them live in that. As a charity, we have 6 social workers. Some are attached to the home, some are attached to the drop-in centre. We have 6 social workers working with us. But these are, in fact, the couple there are house parents that they've adopted 2 of the children. The little boy on the right has got special needs. And the little girl on the left is a very, very bright young lady. She's 11-year-old, but she's had the most dreadful upbringing and is not a very nice person at the moment, so she's going to need a lot of support to become a nicer person. Another project we get involved in is house building. So people raise money. Those houses cost about £500. Well, that was a couple of years ago, $500-ish, that sort of figure. And that would create quite a good home for people who were living in poverty. That's actually a home up in the mountains. And that's got living accommodation and sort of sleeping accommodation separate, which most people don't have. Most people will live in one room. So these are different families that are supported. So this family here on the top left, we help support their children. Dad died, mum works, so we've set up a network of people who can look after children, and they go into school to help that family. This family on the top left, that is their home. Her home is not much bigger than that. Okay, so where they're sat becomes the bed at night. That is her home, and we've helped them by providing her enough money. There are lots of water pipes sort of going underground. Set up a system where she can get access to the water and she can sell it for next to nothing. They sell it in bags because they can't get fresh water, so they get bags of water. So we've helped her run a little business of water. She's sorting rags there, that's one of her other jobs. So they cut up, sorting out the rubbish, cut up old clothing and make it into rags for dishcloths. So that's what she's doing there. And she put on, when she knew I asked if I could take a photograph, let me put a new t-shirt on, and she went through the bag of rags to find herself a t-shirt for a photo. And this family at the bottom, so theirs is also a similar size home. Her husband had died, he's in that coffin, an open coffin, and Nigel had done a sort of worship group out in the sticks, and she said, would you come and pray with us? Their home was made into the funeral parlour because the man couldn't be buried, I guess it was burial, or whatever, until she'd saved up enough money, and the community was sort of trying to gather money together so that she could get her husband buried. So that was her home until she'd saved up the money. And they go out and buy a loaf of sliced white bread and a bottle of Coca-Cola and some plastic cups, and they, because we're visitors, they provide us with a slice of white bread and Coca-Cola. So one of the other big projects we do is a community church called The Source. There are 17 districts in Talisay, and each one has set up a cell group. Obviously Mercy in Action have supported them to set up a cell group, so there's a service each week. So we spend a lot of our time going from cell group to cell group to cell group. And then once a week, anybody who can goes to the community centre, the drop-in centre, for a big service. So this is a service for the mums. It's the mums who worship. Because we're there in the school holidays, there's a lot of children around. We've taken that parachute with us. Do you know what parachutes are? You've done parachute games, okay? So schools do lots of parachute games. These mums, and some of them are mums by the time they're 14, 15, have never played games. So we took the parachute, we played some games. They would not let their children touch this. This was their game. And although it's a community church for the mums, you can see men sort of hovering on the outside, just seeing what's happening. There is a men's worship group that meets on a Saturday morning as well. So that's a little bit of area that they meet up once a week for a service. Okay, so these are different cell groups we went to. So top left, that's one of the communities is down on the beach, the fishing area. We probably had about 15 at that service. The next group is in somebody's home, about 40 in that service. And then the bottom one, you can't actually see them all, but there were 200 at that one. That's the service up in the mountains where the Fire Charity first started working. That is their only social life. There's nothing else to do up there, but they meet once a week for a service. Nigel's obviously speaking at that one. And then this is the dawns. We were there at Easter. So this is a sunrise service on Easter Sunday morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. It's obviously a little bit lighter, we've passed the dawn. And there are about 400 there. And the children from the children's homes are actually leading part of the service there. You can see the girls dancing and the boys are doing some sort of drama. Okay, other projects we do. So I don't know if you do them here. Making a shoebox to send to. Do you do that to send out to people? No. So a shoebox, you make a shoebox parcel up. If you're sponsoring a child, so we sponsor children, then you make it for that specific child, but otherwise you'd make it for a 16-year-old boy or a 5-year-old girl. And we send about 600 boxes out to Cebu. So we give it to siblings and lots of different people. And we also do this, the buckets there is, what's it called? Buckets of Love. So it's a Christmas present for all the families. We do about 400 of those. There's enough food in that bucket to feed them for the Christmas Day and the next day, and possibly the day after. Pasta, tins of fish, rice, enough food, and something sweet they have. I can't remember what it is, but they've got something sweet in a bit of a luxury. So, and a useful bucket as well. So they're called buckets of love. That's it then. Right, there is a video clip.
I'm 17 years old from Talisay. Sa una, standby ko sa nabunok na tukan na bawat sa mga kuwan mo, sa mga pamilya na pagkakamot ko sa nabunok na para makakuan ko sa akong pamilya na, and then ko na tulog ko sa kuan merkado na, and then ibuka ko sa akong ate, and then deal bangon na deal ano man din tusod ko na City Hall nga itong tabang ano man aba namatay si mama huwag mo ubaw bawa nagibukaw di ka na po kuyog ta sige na Taguman na to nang nagtumi sa City Hall ang tabang na mga sakay na ato maguna kuman na to pag-istambay na ako bundok na yung mga raging boy at ato na tintal sila na ako na suyot na kung di ko suyot kung paano ko nila na ato na magkalagal ko nila ato na magbuboy ko pagkita na ako atong chase na ato na ko magbuboy na una to igalgal ko sa kung ang barkada na dil so dadrap ina dahil lingaw pa ka dito lingaw ka so ayan yung na to kuyong nga to burma na to na uman sultihan ko ng mga teacher na din kuha na din andam na sunlo na ka sa boys home na siya kaya kuha to ano man ingon siya ingon sila kuhan sila mami o daddy na pasunlon ka dito lipay kong pasunlon yung ko salamat yung Lord salamat Ginoo na nasulod yung na dire lindot preskila man lindot silahan pang school lingme salamat ko nila nagikuan yung nila balangga anak nalipay ko sa boys home na mga papa preskila ko salamat ko sa mission action salamat din ko sa Ginoo thank you.
Hi, I am John Bernard Baclay. I am a Mercy in Action Scholar since I was in grade 5. They've been sponsoring me since I was 9 years old. Until now, I am already in college. I am 19 years old now. I am now an OJT at Lexmark. Then they're still sponsoring me, and they even let me stay at one of the Mercy in Action's houses. Mercy in Action has brought changes in my life and even in my family. They've been providing my financial needs in terms of my school projects and my uniforms. My family don't have to worry about that. And my fare to school, they have been let me stay, and that's great help for me and my family. And now this is going to be my last year in school, and I've been very thankful to Mercy in Action because without them, I don't think I could make it here. So I'm very grateful that they have been sponsoring me.
When we arrived this summer, he came out with the driver, and he's training to be a driver, and he's hoping to be a driver one day, so he'll be learning to drive. And the second one went on to get a university degree, went off to work in some government offices, and is now employed by Mercy in Action. He's one of my colleagues now. He's Bernard. He's one of my colleagues, and he lived up in the mountains in absolute poverty. And he used to walk 2 miles to school each day, and then when he got to university, Mercy in Action offered him a bed so that he could actually go each day and not have to drive down into the city each day. So little bits do help and can change communities. A little drop in the ocean, but can change communities. Thank you for listening. I
have a question. Okay, question.
Sorry, yeah.
About the language. So, do the children on the street, you have to teach them English? Or
Yeah, the mums, anybody in education is learning English. So their natural language is Cebuano or Bisaya. Some children learn Tagalog, which is the official Filipino language, but they're singing songs in English, they're singing American songs. The children in school, anybody at school we can communicate with quite well, but the children who've been living on the streets do not speak any English. Yeah, they only speak Cebuano, the local dialect. So that is quite difficult. Yeah. Anybody we employ in the Philippines has to speak English as well as Cebuano. Yeah. So we generally employ Filipinos out there. Yeah.
So in terms of our own involvement,
In terms of,
if we ourselves would like to
if you would like to contribute, and that's not what this is about, but if some people had already approached me and said they'd like to offer you something, if you could make a check out to the church, Christ in St. Luke's, but on the memo write Mercy in Action, so that we can just have one check, because although we've got a dollar account, it costs us $20 for every check we present, so it makes more sense, if that's okay, if anybody would like to contribute. The next big project is wanting to build a second boys' home on the same grounds as the first one, so that the boys are all together in one space. The house that we rent at the moment has a lot of land, and vulnerable children, you need to keep your eye on them and they can get lost in the grounds, so we want to keep them all in a more confined space really. So that's the next big project. The last one we've just done is they were trying to analyse why children were dropping out of school, and there were two main reasons. One is teenage pregnancy, and the second was children were not able to fulfil the requirements of the curriculum because they hadn't got access to the internet and printers and things. So analysed it over the summer. All the children on our schooling programme between the ages of 15 and 18 did a whole week's course on health, but they had government speakers to talk about HIV and AIDS and teenage pregnancies and all sorts of things, emotions, all the sorts of things that teenagers want to know about when they're between 15 and 18. Hopefully that's going to start to address that problem. And we've set up a room at the drop-in centre that's got computers, internet and a printer. In fact, the teachers that went out from the UK donated enough money to buy a printer and stationery. Because the schools are so overcrowded, the schools are open from either 7, the children go to school from either 7 till 12 or 12 till 5, there's split shifts. So the children will always have either the morning or the afternoon free, which means that they can go, and there's always a teacher there available in this room to support them if they want help with their work. So we're trying to address things as needs arise, and we can raise the money for them. So if you would like to contribute, that would be lovely. Just make a check out, just write on the memo, whatever the memo is, that's what I've been told to say, that it's the Mercy in Action. So.